Hi, I'm John Cronin. I'm the local election candidate for Southwark. I'll be running next year in May. And
I'm Matt Stevens, political activist. I've done various campaigning all over London. Great to be with you again, John.
Yeah, thank you. Right, we want to start off with yesterday, Richard Tice had his first show on Talk Radio. Just for people who don't know, he's going to be every Sunday from 10 to 1. Every Sunday, and I think it was a very good start. I think he got a lot of good feedback.
Absolutely. I mean, looking through social media, there was lots of good feedback. I think it's a great way for Richard to attract potential voters for the party, because obviously, people who might not know about the party can call up, and it's a good opportunity for him to interact with voters. No other political leader has a platform where they can speak to voters week in, week out for 3 hours a week. There are various callers on, various supporters that can question him. I think it's good for him to talk about current affairs, because it gives people more of an idea of the party's policy on certain issues. Because obviously he's sat talking about the big issues for 3 hours a week. Because
what I've noticed is that we seem to get a lot of bad rap. So because the way it looked, we didn't have an identity. Yeah. So you'll see more of what we're about, what our policies are.
It helps
and all
with
the
that,
rest
absolutely.
Of it,
and I mean, David Ball's been getting on GB News recently, which is good. He's been on GB News a few times. He went on Talk Radio the other day. I don't know if you saw that, talking about children being vaccinated, which of course looks as if it's going to be going ahead now. He talked about the potential rollout of vaccinations on children, and David spoke really well about it. He said, look, government advisors said herd immunity is not possible now, so the only reason to be vaccinating children is so that everybody can have vaccine passports, and that's why he thinks they're sort of dishing it out to children, which is totally illiberal and completely wrong.
Well, what I was hearing about today is that they're talking about they threatened they threatened. Now they're trying to bribe kids. They've got a few companies like lastminute.com and a few other companies that saying we're going to give you a £30 voucher if you have the vaccine.
I mean, absolutely. So amongst my age group, I've sort of done a few polls on my Instagram to see are you going to be taking the vaccine? I've asked people in my age group, and the majority, I'm quite surprised, it's about 85% yes. And those who aren't going to take it really aren't publicly willing to admit they're not going to take it, because of the onslaught they get from everybody. I mean, literally, if you say you're not taking the vaccination, you get 20 minutes of absolute backlash against it. And that's why I think a lot of people, the government, like you just mentioned there, are trying to coerce people into getting it, and then it makes it look right, and they've got the state behind them because the government is saying it. As David was mentioning, some parents might be hesitant for their children to get the vaccination, but children are going to go ahead with it because of the peer pressure from others. And I'm really not sure at all about vaccinating children, and the peer pressure the government are putting on and their peers are putting on. Not a good look for the government, I don't think. Okay.
Well, we were recently at the Battle of Ideas.
Absolutely, it was absolutely amazing. Yeah,
absolutely amazing. If you follow our channel, you've seen us have a few interviews. You with Calvin Robinson,
absolutely, yeah,
and myself with Mo Lavat. There's no one coming up, isn't there, on the
October the 5th, I think, the weekend of October the 5th.
October the 8th and 9th.
8th and 9th, absolutely.
8th and 9th, yeah. Over 2 days. The reason we're letting you know now is because you visit their website, you can get the tickets at a reduced price, at early bird price. You can buy tickets for 1 day or 2 days, and obviously you get concessions based on. So I advise you to visit if you are planning on going, I advise you to visit the website and buy now.
It was a great experience for me personally as a young person, because it was great. It's just, if you like Question Time on the BBC, it's a little bit like that, but far, far more informed, if that makes sense, because it's a panel of people talking about different political issues. COVID wasn't mentioned, which was nice to get away from that for the day, and it was great to be amongst people of different viewpoints. We had a Green Party, former deputy leader of the Green Party, speaking, and he spoke so well about free speech, and obviously I disagree with a lot of what he says, but he spoke so well, and it was great to speak to him afterwards. So it's good to have people of all viewpoints come and represent what they think about certain different topics. It was amazing, so I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, it'll be at Church House, Westminster, once again.
Absolutely.
And I think I presume it'll be from 10 to 6.
10 to 6, or 10 to 6, something like that.
On both days.
Both days, absolutely.
Okay. So we've gone to thing that's dominating the headlines at the moment, Afghanistan.
Yeah, devastating situation, isn't it? Obviously, in the country.
The MPs have been called back in, haven't they, today?
Which is pretty much, it's very rare for that to happen, so it's obviously a massive situation. And what I'd say about it is it's absolutely devastating. I mean, I read a story today that the Taliban, who are taking over major cities, are actually going around and knocking on doors and getting 12-year-old girls and forcing them to do certain things with them now. So people look at the situation and might not see the severity of it, but I mean 12-year-old girls are being forced to do certain things with members of the Taliban who have taken over key cities. It's an absolute catastrophe, and the government have to step in. And Joe Biden, of course, took the decision to remove troops from Afghanistan recently, and he was asked at the time, look, do you think this is sensible, that the Taliban will take over again? An interviewer said to him, look, your intelligence committee think the Taliban will take over again, and he simply said, no, that's not the case, and did a whole 10-minute sort of questioning on it, saying, the Taliban aren't going to take over again, and now he looks like a complete fool.
Yeah. It's absolutely incredible that how it's happened so quickly as well.
It's devastating, and the really crucial thing now is that Afghanistan doesn't become a breeding ground for terrorists.
Yeah.
That's the problem, isn't it? And that's why we need to intervene, get the troops on the floor now, and get this sorted.
Yeah, exactly.
So you want to talk a little bit about grade inflation with the A-level and GCSE results?
I think it would affect you more around your age group kind of thing. How do you feel about it all?
So obviously I got my grade last year because I was supposed to be doing my GCSEs last year. But speaking to people I know, pretty much every single one of them was very pleased with their grades, which tells you that obviously if everyone's happy with their grades, there's something going not quite right.
Yeah.
Now, what I would say is it's very difficult for teachers to get the balance right, because if they give a student a D when actually they might have achieved a C, that's life-changing. That's a massive decision. It's really difficult for teachers to strike that balance, because how on earth are they going to know whether that student might have got an A or might have got... it's difficult. So I think teachers have given the students the benefit of the doubt. It was a really difficult situation for the teachers, and they couldn't get the balance right. You wanted to talk about sort of how it might affect them in the workplace.
Yeah. Do you think that so many people have got the A grades that discredited? So
well, at the moment, the grades at secondary school now are grades 1 to 9. So 9's the best, 1's the worst. And obviously, because of this inflation, instead of making it so grades aren't given so easily, they're actually looking to introduce another grade, a grade 10. So the government recognised there's grade inflation, so instead of that, they're looking to introduce an A star. Wow. Which is just absolute lunacy. As you say, there's serious inflation, and a key worry I have is people my age group who last year had their first year of A levels, or going into the last year of either college or the GCSEs now, because they've had 2 years of practically majorly disturbed learning. We've missed 2 years of education, and we're the ones who have missed out the most in education, and we're the ones who are going to be sitting exams. And obviously I think it's right we do sit exams, but I think the government needs to look really closely at how they can ensure that grades are fair in both respects, so that grades aren't inflated and that grades aren't really damaged because of obviously the severe amount of time we've missed of education. But no, it's crucial that exams come back next year to get that balance right.
Of course, yeah. So do you think that the ones that have had their grades the last 2 years, do you think they're going to be disadvantaged in the workplace?
It depends. We've got to look at the economy now and how different workplaces are changing. That could be that could be a key thing to take into account. It might affect them at university, because a lot of them will be behind at university when they go there on their courses, and people's attitude towards working at university now and their work levels probably aren't quite at the level they need to be for university. People are going to have to really work hard, and I think it's going to be difficult, obviously having been sat relatively relaxed for the last year and a half. It's going to be difficult for people to go from 10% work up to that 100% needed for university. So the only worry I have is people's work rate and work ethic at university next year, and obviously in the workplace it may affect them, although I'd argue everyone's in the same boat now of our age group.
Okay, right. GB News.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got there's been some improvement, hasn't there?
Definitely.
Since we've talked, Patrick Christie's been added to the mix from Talk Radio. I think that's a good addition.
Absolutely.
Apparently Andrew Neil's going to be back in September.
Well, that's the word on the street, and as you say with Patrick Christie's, it's good to have some more young faces on the show like him. He's a great young presenter, great enthusiasm. And as you say, GB News is vastly improved. It's got different shows now with different panellists, different presenters. And I think it's good, because before it was quite static and quite samey regularly. Now there are different shows, they're more punchy. And as you say, Andrew Neil's back next month, which is massive for the channel. Obviously with Nigel Farage going there, the numbers, Nigel Farage's numbers on the show have been superb. some nights he's actually beaten Sky and BBC at the same time combined.
It'd be interesting to see what the figures were for yesterday, because he was gone head to head with Richard Tice on Talk Radio.
Absolutely, yesterday morning, as you say.
Between you and me, I watched Nigel's show and then watched Richard Tice's show on YouTube. On YouTube afterwards.
Yeah, it's good. You can do that, can't you? That's the good thing for Richard, because that video stays on YouTube, so people can go back and watch it. I think he got something like 15,000 viewers on YouTube at the time, which is great numbers for him on YouTube. That's relatively quite good. So it's 15,000 central news voters he's getting. So yeah, great. And another thing, we mentioned the GB News. It was quite shouty. It was quite now when it started, it was quite Sun newspaper, if you know what I mean. It was quite headliney, attention seeking. That's the best word. Right. Now it's balanced out. It's much better. The set is so much better now. It's much brighter. Before it was like a teenager's bedroom. It was dark. The lights looked like they were off. Do you know what I mean? And now it's
well, Sky News was the same when it first started.
It definitely was. And now
Sky. So look where it is now.
Absolutely, great studio, and GB News is absolutely massively improved.
Over 2 months now they've been running. So
it's brilliant, isn't it?
Excellent.
So you wanted to talk about something that happened a couple of weeks ago now. The Reform UK Bank with Metro Bank. The bank account was shut down.
That was amazing. I mean, like they class it as not a viable account or feasible account. How can that be the case? I mean, you would have think that banks would be keen to have as much money invested in accounts as possible. I would have thought.
I mean, absolutely, as you say, you've got to look at Reform UK. Obviously, now they're not polling it a great percentage, but what I would say is they won a national election in the last 2 years, didn't they? They won the EU elections. Yeah. So
apparently they're the fifth biggest party at the time.
They are the fifth biggest party, absolutely. And they won a national election a couple of years ago. They won a national election more recently than Liberal Democrats and Labour and the Green Party and all the other minor parties. Far more recently that they've won a national election than them. So what I would say is they're standing 500 candidates plus at the next election. Richard Tice confirmed. So my point of view there is it's a stupid business move from Metro Bank, and it clearly is a political decision. Either I don't know whether someone from the government put some pressure on there, but it's a really confusing one as to why Metro Bank decided to shut the account.
Exactly. Yes, it doesn't make no sense. He done a press conference on it soon after, didn't he?
Yes, he absolutely did, and he sort of discussed with various journalists, how outrageous it was. He was saying he's worked in 6 different countries, he's run over 120 companies, and he's never seen this happen before. So he's almost certain it's a political decision. He doesn't know sort of whether someone from the government said something and said, look, you need to shut these guys down. But how a smaller party is supposed to operate without a bank account? It's almost impossible.
Yeah, I know.
You can't pay your rent, you can't pay your staff, you can't pay anything.
Exactly. It doesn't make no sense whatsoever.
No.
Yeah. Well, it was great to see. It was great news to see last Thursday at Tower Hamlets that an independent candidate won. I think it was from the Aspire group. He was an independent councillor, and he beat Labour. I think Labour didn't even finish second. I think they finished third in the thing. And there's rumours going around now that a lot of the councillors on the Tower Hamlets council as it stands at the moment, the Labour Party, are going to possibly form their own party and stand in the next local elections in May, in that regard, as a new party. So where does that leave Labour? I mean, you would have thought it was a safe seat for Labour, Tower Hamlets.
Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing now Labour are not only losing seats they used to have, they're losing. The problem for Labour could be not only here. There are lots of local issues here you talk about and raise very well, John, that Labour aren't doing well at.
Yeah, he was an anti-LTN candidate who won.
Well, there you go. So it just shows the candidates with key issues can really hammer home. And not only in the local area around here, the issues you highlight very well and what have you, but nationally, if, for example, as you mentioned there, that a new political party of some description could be formed to run in the local elections, I just wonder whether Labour could have a problem with not only a new political party formed, but obviously with parties such as George Galloway's.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that they're focusing very heavily now on trying to win back the seats in the north. I just worry that some of their safe seats now they've got.
Yeah.
Could they lose those because of such a focus in the
Yeah.
north? And if there were to be a serious political party on the left, begin a new one, like we see the Brexit party do on the right, that could be a serious electoral issue for Labour.
The problems we're having at the moment. With a bank account, for example. Since I've announced, I've faced all kinds of prejudice and hatred. I hadn't said a word, and I was announced for the London Mayor elections, and they were saying they were labelling me NF, and I hadn't said a word. It was absolutely ridiculous. At the time, Reform UK hadn't even announced their policies. So
how can somebody judge a book without seeing it? Not even seeing its cover. You can't even. Yeah. It's not even like the saying, you can't judge a book off its cover. There is no cover to judge them off. So
exactly.
As you say,
Reform UK have got to discover their identity.
It's really important,
So voters know exactly what they're voting for. At the moment, I've really pushed local issues. I've been basically running my own thing, kind of thing. Like I've had no interference from the party whatsoever. So don't know how they can say that we're a fascist or whatever.
It's not like Richard Tice's coming running down your neck saying, "Oh, John, you can't say that. You can't say that."
Yeah,
you can't say that.
I've basically had a clear run. I've had no interference whatsoever. Yeah. So I would advise anyone who wants to run for reform that. And you want to push your issues, especially in local elections, I advise you to apply to run. I've applied to run. I don't know how it's gonna work out, but I'm well up for it. Even if it doesn't work out, I'm always happy to go independent if it came down to it, especially on a local perspective.
Absolutely. No. So I think that's about all this week, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Bye.